going to start the City of Erie Historic Review Commission meeting for today. It's already October 7, 2024. First, we'll have the call to order, roll call. Jean Craig, not here. Dave Brennan's here. Mark Tannenbaum?
Here.
Melinda Meyer is not here, but she may be here just a little bit late, so we'll see if she's able to show up. Matthew Falcone?
I'm here remotely.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. And Jason Wazorek, is he on? No. Jason's not here. Okay. Well, the first order of business is public comment. I know we have a speaker here, so we'll go ahead and have the first speaker. Jeff, if you'd like to approach the speaker.
Jeff Kidder, Kidder Architects, 502 West 6th Street, Erie, PA. Just about 6 years ago was when Tom Hagen and I started talking about this idea of a single entity starting to acquire historic properties on West 6th Street. It's under the umbrella of Historic Erie Preservation Trust, which is an entity that Tom created where he purchases the properties, renovates them, gifts the properties to the trust, and the trust owns them in perpetuity. They all generate income either through apartment or office or commercial use, and the income stays within the trust to maintain the properties. The model is the Newport Restoration Foundation in Newport, Rhode Island is what it was based on. So 6 years later, 36 buildings, miscellaneous lots and properties, up to about 100 apartment units, 3 office buildings, some commercial space. So you've seen it all, what's going on. You also saw recently that the AAA building has been torn down. So it is in the historic district. It was listed as an intrusion on the 1984 National Register listing. Tom purchased it initially with the plan to tear it down and redevelop the property. We went through some exercises to look at reusing it as an exercise. We looked at keeping an office building. We actually worked out of it for a couple of years, our offices, while we waited for our current office to be renovated. And the last effort was to renovate it for a restaurant through Red Letter Hospitality. And we went through construction documents, bidding, and the numbers came back just unsustainable numbers. If we had left the building as it looked and just put a restaurant in it, it may have worked, but the goal was to make it fit into the neighborhood better. And what we were proposing to do to the exterior of it just wasn't, the financial side of it did not make any sense. So we made a decision to tear it down. It's down and gone. The hole's being filled in. Just as an aside, which we didn't know, but we had the construction drawings from 1970 for the building and showed pretty basic foundations. There was a lower level. As they've been tearing it apart, we found out that the soil under the building is garbage, junk, and they actually built it on caissons and grade beams.
Wow.
And it's almost better, I hate to say it, that we went this path because we were proposing to have to cut up a lot of the basement floor for plumbing and redoing everything. And if we would have started cutting where we thought there was a 4 or 5 inch slab and found 12-inch concrete grade beams 2 feet thick, we would have really, it would have been a problem.
Is that typical throughout that area, Jeff? Or you just...
No. We think that there was probably a ravine through there that got filled in, but it's junk soil, and so we're digging out the junk. The water table is like at -10, wow. 11 feet. So anyways, we're filling it back in, proper backfill, grading, compaction, And we will be building at least one new building on that property. Now that that building is gone, we have a clean slate. And it's the Reed property was,
Is there 3 lots or 2?
what's that?
Is it 3 lots or
Well,
2?
originally it was 2. The Reed Mansion was on a bigger lot, and then they tore a building down to the west that was on a smaller lot. Now they're all combined, and then we picked up we've expanded to the north a little bit. So it's a big property, and the restaurant was really a lot bigger than Red Letter wanted to do, but the building was going to be a single occupant, so we're kind of back to the drawing board now, and we're going to design a new building for them that's going to be slab on grade, but look and fit into the neighborhood, be more appropriately sized. I know we got a variance to do up to 7,250 square feet, which is probably going to be our maximum limit. And then most likely the plan is to subdivide off the west side, and that gives us a chance to put another building, which would probably be apartments, but again, to fit in with the neighborhood. So, we've gotten rid of the building. We have the freedom now to do whatever. We will build new on it. We're not going to leave it vacant. We're not going to parking lot it. We're not going to do whatever, but it's pushed the schedule back because we're starting over and other things are ahead of it now. So it's going to be probably at least a year and a half, 2 years before we start building there again. So I just wanted to update you on that. The second update is that 6th and Cherry intersection where the traffic signal is, Garden Courts on the southwest corner. On the northeast corner is the old Robert Jarecki House, the old Lay Law building. We have that, and that's M-Key or RH Energy or something. And it's an office. They're in there. We're putting a new slate roof on it right now. We just started last week. We've already cleaned the masonry brick on that. On the southeast corner, there's a Tudor on the corner. The second one in is one that we've been working on for a while. It's a Tudor, and we're finishing that up this week. And that was single family. It's now apartments. It was apartments when we got it, and it's still 4 apartments. So on that northwest corner, a couple years ago, there was a kind of a tannish brick Baldwin 4-unit apartment, flat roof, parapet, whatever, kind of didn't fit in the neighborhood. Tom purchased that. We tore that down. That's been down for a couple years, and there's grass there and stuff. We are going to be, and this is just to keep you in the loop, there's a building, and I can give you, can I come up? But I don't know if can you?
The 518?
So this is 608, 610, which is next to that lot. We are going to be tearing that down next week. And I know, we have there's no rules, there's no obligation. I'm just kind of here to keep you in the loop. It is a wood frame structure. It has been added on to several times. It has foundation issues, basement issues. It's 2 apartments now, but the grade around the building over the years has been raised up to like the floor level, and all those sills have been buried under dirt. And we had to do some work there for something and found an old sidewalk that was 12 inches below the current sidewalk, and the wood sills have been rotted. You can just pull them apart. It's not a significant architectural building, and the condition of it doesn't warrant putting any money into it. So we're going to tear it down. The other building on the right of this is right on the Cherry Street side. It's 518 Cherry, another wood frame building that, again, it has really no architectural merit. It's not in the district. The historic district boundary was just to the south of this building, but we've been able to acquire all these properties, And we're going to tear both houses down. And then on the next page, if you look, we are proposing then to, if you see here, if you see this footprint of a new building facing 6th Street, that would be of character of the neighborhood, and there's some other drawings here I'll show you. But
So 602 would be where 608 is now.
yeah, 608 is over here,
Right.
and this is just grass right now.
Yes.
And that other house, the second house I showed you is in the top center, you can kind of see an outline. Directly off the sheet here, across the alley, is the Urban Honey Bakery that we're doing up here, and she'll be opening in about a month. And, but we're proposing to construct a new building that would have 4 apartments in it, that would look like a big house, and facing 6th Street, that carries the kind of the character of the street from Tom's house at 620 to Dwayne's house next door here to the west. And then the similar setback, similar scale, but the new building would have 4 apartments. Behind it, against the alley where the other house is now, we would build basically a 5-car garage and an apartment that would face Cherry. So it would have another residential unit on the property. So we're basically taking what is now 3 units in 2 buildings and making 5 units in 2 buildings. And just treating that whole corner as a single part, look more uniform and upscale with the neighborhood.
And this is what it's going to look like?
This is, yeah, what we're going in this direction. So it's basically going to be a wood frame, clapboard sided building with porches and bay window and, detailed appropriately for the character. It's not vinyl siding. It's not vinyl windows. We do everything kind of up to a certain par, but you'd go in the front door and there'd be an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment on each side of the first floor. The second floor would have, these would be 2-story apartments on the second floor, so there'd be 2 bedrooms. So you go in and then you'd go up into the roof attic to a second bedroom. And these are just some, looking at the different sides of it to get us idea of the scale. And then the last sheet is the garage with a residential apartment on the end facing Cherry.
Are these garages would be used by the people in the front, or?
They're optional, they're rental, so we've been building more garages behind some of these properties on 6th Street because we've had a demand for it. So like there's 5 garages behind my office. Well, somebody that rents from us down by the History Center
Rents one of those.
rents one to keep his extra car in, and so it's really for tenants of all of our buildings. It just depends how far they want to be from their apartment. So I just wanted to let you know that this is going on, that even though we are taking stuff down, we will be rebuilding in a manner that is sensitive and fits into the neighborhood. That's all. So you know, because every time something comes down in a historic district, it could be bad, but in this case, we think we're, improving it, and we're not removing anything that has any historic integrity to it.
Jeff, can I ask you 2 questions? The first one would be, what is the condition or availability or presence of existing garages for these 2 different homes? So, like, does 608, 610 have a garage at all
No,
on
it
that
didn't.
lot?
It did not even have any off-street parking when
Okay.
we got it, and we
Okay.
put a parking pad off the alley behind it so that they could have a place to park
Got it, so they could have access,
off-street.
off-street parking, sure.
And the other little house has a spot behind it off the alley.
The
That's just a dirt park.
518.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
just a dirt parking.
Okay,
or-
that one's just a little bit hard to understand from
Yeah.
the images, just the orientation and.
Right.
So each of them are they are the only structure
Correct.
on,
Yes,
on the
they are
lots
two
existing?
structures.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. And then my second question, just curious more than anything. If you had to pick an existing home within that historic district of the West Sixth Street Historic District, what would this new 602 West Sixth Street most closely resemble to an existing one if you had to pick one or two?
There's not a lot of wood frame sided buildings on Sixth Street. There is one right next door to our office where we are, 512 West Sixth, which is now covered with vinyl siding, and we're going to be, it's part of our inventory. And we started to strip the siding off of that to see what we're dealing with. And what we've seen so far is we might even be able to keep the wood siding.
Nice.
That's there now. The other wood-sided one is another one we have at 538, which is the blue one with the red door. It's more Georgian, it's a little more fancy, but that's a clapboard-sided. Otherwise,
They're brick.
Most everything
brick.
else is brick or
Feather.
shingle or stone or, so, there's some precedent, but and adding another one might bring some, we want some variety. That's the nature of historic neighborhoods that develop
Right.
over time, is that there is variety to them. And, one thing we have on West Sixth Street is plenty of brick and less unpainted brick now. Most of it was painted, and now we've been paint stripping it all. So, and, we're not trying to be Williamsburg and recreate historic, intact, detailed everything building, but we want something that doesn't look like 4 townhouses in a row, or doesn't look like an apartment building, but looks like a house that has apartments in it.
What was originally on this site, the 608 site? Is this like the second or third building, or
608, I think.
the one you're tearing down?
I think part of that was the first building there, but that whole block, the block from there down through where the Tudor is at Tom's house, 620, had a bunch of little buildings like this. And in the 1920s, they were purchased and lots combined, and that's when the houses that are there now were built. So that neighborhood has evolved and been redeveloped into the more mansion feel that it is now than what that was back in, the 1800s. So.
Okay.
It is interesting that a lot of those older houses, whether they're on 10th Street or wherever, they were single and they broke them into apartments. So they look like a thing, but
Right.
they're kind of chopped up. You're actually designing one
Right.
to do that,
Yeah.
which is unique. I think that's
Right,
interesting.
I mean, we just want it to be where somebody's driving down the street and they don't even think that it's a new building.
I used to live at 416 West 10th. It's kind of an Asian looking, has a kind of a
Yep,
Chinese looking roof on it, a big stone building.
Yep.
And that used to be a single family,
Yep.
but then they chopped it into 5 of them. It was
Right.
fun. But you're doing the exact opposite.
right. But even the ones that
The inverse.
were apartments, like some of them that we would get, and like the one right next to my office had 7 apartments in it. We're going to have 3. Because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
making 350 square foot apartments in
Right.
some of these places. And we don't go really less than 600, 650 minimum. So we're making them more livable to today's standards and to the market that we're reaching out to. And we have no trouble renting anything. I mean, there's some turnover, which one would expect from people leaving, moving out of town, or buying a house or something. But I think of our 90 or so apartments right now, we only have maybe 2 or 3 vacancies, and they fill up really quick. So that's good. And the rents we're getting are, we push the bar up on that. But again, it doesn't the rents that we're charging in no way are anywhere close to covering the expense that had been put into it, but that's not why Tom's doing this, but you have to get a little bit of it back, because it's there to maintain the buildings in perpetuity.
Jeff, I think it's commendable, just the overall vision that Tom Hagen had to begin with for this in Erie. And I don't pretend to speak on behalf of all commissioners, but as the staff member for the city, I appreciate that, from the bottom of my heart. I really do. And I also appreciate you coming to talk with us about this and keep us informed as representatives of the city with ties to historic preservation and aesthetic and vernacular and neighborhood and history. I think we love to see when people come speak to us about, these projects. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you for giving us the context of the existing conditions of the buildings, the two existing structures that are there, such that we can understand, you've done your part of analyzing them and trying to
Well, there
work
was one,
through.
318 West 6th, which is next to Gannon's Catholic House, has the 2 bay windows in the front.
Mm-hmm.
That one was sinking into the ground. I mean, it is 11 inches lower in the back than the front.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Over time, and it's happened because as we tore it apart, we found previous floor leveling efforts at the back. There was one, and there was another one, then there was ours. So we told Tom right from day one, we're like, before we do anything, we got to stabilize the building. Mm-hmm. So we had like $150,000, $200,000 just in putting steel like stilts into the ground under the whole building, just to make sure it didn't move anymore. And we said, look, we just had to do our due diligence and say we could just tear it down and build a brand new building that looks just like it on a solid foundation that would be level and plumb and probably in the end be cheaper. And he's like, no, that's not what our mission is. So when the property warrants the investment, he'll do it. But these buildings just don't. They're just not worth it. And we know that we can put something back that's better than what's there and move forward. Because this is all, well, in perpetuity. All of us will be long gone and this will still be going because of what's happening now. And that's where we're at.
Jeff, are you allowed to say anything about the Gannon dorm area there? I don't know if you addressed that in your presentation. Is there anything you could say about that plan?
Yeah, so we're out to bid right now on what was called the Priest House, the Tudor. Mm-hmm. That we got 2 buildings from Gannon. That Gannon was going to tear down under the previous leadership. The old health center on the corner of 6th and Sass, and then the Tudor, which was called the Priest House, and they had basically abandoned the Carter Shannon house in a corner for 10 years. I mean, it was just sitting there. And when we purchased the Ron Norman's old photography house, we were now there on the block.
I just saw him.
And we wanted these other buildings, and after a couple of years of back and forth with Gannon, we were able to get them. And so the Priest House, which is Frederick Jarecki House, what we call it, that's just went out to bid today. So we're going to be renovating that December through August of next year, and Gannon's leasing it back from us for their alumni house and development offices. And then the one in the corner will be going out to bid in a few weeks on that, and that is going to be 2 4-bedroom residential suites for students that Gannon's going to lease. And then as soon as this school year is over in May for Gannon, they're going to start tearing Worley Hall down, the dorm. Mm-hmm. And it'll take a couple months, but we're going to be finishing up to 2 houses like within feet of where the dorm's coming down. And then once that's down, about this time next year, we'll be moving the Ron Norman house. We're going to pick it up, rotate it 180 degrees, and move it to 6th Street between the other two houses. And then Gannon's going to lease that back, and the plan for that is they want to make it a, how would I say it? It's like lodging, like a bed and breakfast for their own use, for visitors and alumni and stuff like that, which is good because we don't really have to change the interior. It really lays out well to have 5 guest rooms. And we've been working on that one now. Masonry restoration, we just put a slate roof on it. We're going to be doing all the exterior woodwork, get it all done, all the whole building, the exterior, so that when we move it over there, we don't have to make a mess working on it between 2 finished buildings. And then we can put the porch back on and all that. So that's what's going on there.
Good luck with your engineers on that one. So.
Well, the company Wolf House Movers have moved hundreds of buildings every year, so they've moved a lot bigger things than this. And luckily, we're just going from 7th Street to 6th Street.
And you're not even going on the street.
No right of way, no utilities,
Right,
no
no
trees,
traffic
no
signs.
nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Can you
we
imagine
can't
if you had to
make
go
it-
over a roadway? That'd be like,
Well, you have to move all the street signs and all the
Oh, if
traffic
you're on the
lights.
street.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
on the street.
no traffic signals, nothing,
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
This is sort of an
Anyways,
ideal condition.
we have a couple more properties we're going to be getting within the next month or so that are good properties, so that's exciting. So in the end, we'll probably be around 40 buildings. We're just waiting some people out.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Well, I know, Jeff, you only had so much time. You have to go to the meeting. Any commissioners have any questions or comments? Matthew or?
Matthew, do you have any questions for Jeff before
Oh,
he
good.
steps
Okay.
out?
I don't. I appreciate the briefing. I realize that all of this is beyond our purview as the HRC, so can't really afford any comments. But if at some point in the future you'd like to entertain the idea of becoming a city historic district, I think that'd be a wonderful conversation to have.
Yep, very good.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so
All
much,
right,
Jeff.
thank you, everybody.
We appreciate it.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Hey, Jeff, do you want these back?
Oh.
Yes, you do want those back.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, I didn't think you want them out. That's fine. That's fine. I get that. I got your back. I know.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, any other public comment? I don't see anyone here, and there's no one online, I don't believe. So we'll move on to the approval of the past meeting minutes. Heather, was that sent out?
You know what? We'll have to pass on this.
Okay,
and
yeah.
maybe I will resend it and we'll approve, we'll do that in November because
Okay.
that was not attached.
Okay,
Good
sounds
catch.
good. So we'll move on the agenda to our next section, which is old business. And the first item is the discuss the HRC training that we had on September 13th, I can't speak, with the NAPC. Did you have any starting comments about an overview on that, or do you just want to talk about it in general with everyone that was there?
Really just sort of wanted to provide the opportunity for a discussion, even if it's just, looking back at the training, thoughts that commissioners had, ideas for future trainings, what portion of the training we thought was maybe, richer or more applicable than others. So really more of a discussion. And I'm happy to also reach out to the 2 commissioners that aren't present for the same discussion too.
Yeah, okay. Mark, any comments?
I had a great time. I mean, I had a difficult time Zooming it because I'm inept on a lot of that. So I was Zooming it on my cell phone and on my computer, so I could hear it on one and see it on the other. And I know that I was hard to communicate there like that because of that. But the truth be told is I was able to stay for the entire thing. And I did not think I was going to be able to make all of it, but I did. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn more. I mean, I feel that I'm like the least experienced, the least experienced person on the board. Everybody else has a lot better training than I do. I'm more of like a boots on the ground guy, but I appreciate the fact that I had an opportunity to learn more. And it's very similar to I had the opportunity to go to the big convention 2 years ago in Cincinnati, and I learned a tremendous amount there. So this is a great. I mean, personally, I think it made me more able to do the work that I want to do in this commission and the work I want to do in the city in general, because it gave me a greater understanding and background that I felt I was lacking.
Yep, okay, great,
So,
great.
I mean, as far as for being a layman on a board, I thought that the board in general brought the right group of people to teach me how to do better.
Great.
Mark, was there any section in particular, like the
Yeah,
the
well, I-
law or the design review
Oh,
or
all
any?
that. The design review was great because, at first I'm like, that looks great. I was like, oh no, it's terrible. It was like, the more I looked at it, the more I was wrong, and like all the legal stuff, I knew some of that and I was able to scaffold onto things I knew, but the truth was it was vastly more than I did know, and it helped me learn more. I mean, there was no part of that I was not on the edge of my seat.
Great.
Thank
great.
you. That's great.
Matt, did you have any comments or anything on this, on the seminar?
I don't know that was nearly as riveted as
I had a blast.
Commissioner Bob, but it was a good session. I think I really enjoyed the design review component towards the end. For as long as I have been doing this, and I think I've lapsed a decade now, I was able to learn some new things. And it was really interesting to see how different commissions approach kind of their language use when making motions in particular. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
I think that some of the sessions that we attended, though, might have been delivered to us before. And I was thinking back several years ago when there was training done here in person. And I think that some of the sessions might have overlapped with that, but it was still nice as getting that as a refresher. And I think that it would be good kind of understanding that this kind of formal training isn't something that we're able to replicate on an annual basis. It might be good for us to think about next year what our training might look like and what kind of training we would need. So it might be something a little bit more informal where we invite commission members from maybe another city in Pennsylvania or maybe working with the State Historic Preservation Officer for Western Pennsylvania, Bill Callahan, to come in to do a bit of a training for us. But I really appreciated having the cadence of a training, like an annual training. I think that's something that we should absolutely strive to, if not in the same form we just had.
Oh, great. Thank you for that, the comments. I mean, I also thought it was informative. I mean, it was good to kind of review and discuss, again, I've kind of, it's been a little bit repetitive because I've seen some of that before, but it was good just to have the discussions and to talk about it because, no matter what we get, there's nothing that's going to be the same old. There's always going to be something that we're going to have to review and to carefully examine and make a decision on. So I think it was all good to go through that discussion, and everyone has a different opinion, everyone looks at it differently, and we'll come up with a decision in the end as to what's appropriate and what's not, and I'm sure it'll be the best thing that we can come up with. So I think it was well worth it, and like Matthew said, I think we'll have a discussion to continue that and see what's relevant in the near future and what we want to do in the future for those future sessions. So.
Absolutely. I thought it was nice, too, to hear from a national alliance, a group committed to, preservation and working with commissions nationally, because they've seen such a range of where cities and municipalities are. Mm-hmm. And they were able to sort of see where the city of Erie is with our program in its, infancy and its younger years, with the anticipation and with the suggestions of future moves and future, changes, updates. So it was nice to kind of have that guidance and that structure. And I also felt that it was really great to have, I think Matthew articulated, just sort of the reminders of, bringing copies of things like the ordinance with us to meetings and being very particular with our motions and our language. And so while I didn't do that for this meeting, I do plan on bringing, the ordinance and in the plan and so on and so forth to our meetings, such that we have those in person.
Yeah, I thought that was a good point, to make sure you do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just show up and wing it. You really need to know, you're going to be making judgments on what they're proposing, and you need to make sure and back it up with good information and something that's on the books type of thing. So.
Absolutely. And one last comment, I thought it was very timely to have the training at the point at which we're anticipating and have made commissioner-based comments for the zoning ordinance update for Section 7. So while we haven't updated that yet formally, we're in the process of doing that and looking at parts of that document that need revision. So I thought that was a nice kind of parallel timing between the training and the update for that section. So
Okay.
kind of got me thinking in a new way. So.
Well, great. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to the next item of old business. The staff, the update on the approved HBIG projects and final inspections.
Okay, is
Heather?
everyone sitting down? Is everyone sitting down? I want to formally announce we are down to 5 remaining applications and inspections on the historic building improvement grants. Out of 47 or 48, we're down to 5.
Wow.
So that is about a little over 10%. So we started with 47 or 48 originally that we worked through, and we're down to 5. So there's been some busy months of inspections and correspondence and filing and emails and scanning and just general project management, questions for contractors, things like that. But we're down to 5. So considering where we started, they're almost closed out. And we do have some remaining funds. And while I want to articulate, while the program is formally closed and it is not open, there are some existing funds that will be secured and are secured and will require our department and the commission and redevelopment authority to really think through how and where those get applied into the future, because I think that we have some citywide initiatives that have both immediate and near future needs that could really benefit from those remaining funds. So, but I just want to articulate the program is closed and we are not, we're not welcoming new applications for the Historic Building Improvement Grants Program. I just sort of wanted to report on that, provide a status of where we are, and just to remind the commissioners to be thinking about what our goals were originally and how we might be able to work through future needs with any remaining monies that might align with those original goals.
I know we talked about before. Was that in any report? I don't want to interject.
Nope, I'm done. Yep.
I know we talked several times about somehow getting that data and just somehow reporting, the good that it has done, those dollars. I don't know if in the future that we could.
We can
have that.
definitely, like on a map, you're saying, to map out
Yeah,
where,
we talked about the map and
locations.
we
So
talked
we,
about, yeah.
we have that. Our GIS administrator is incredibly busy at the moment, working with me on the citywide historic preservation survey that's launching, and she's launching CityWorks with the engineering department, so those are kind of priority number 1. But as soon as those both kind of get moving and underway, I would definitely like to see that happen. And it might be that happens kind of in the next month or 2 while those other projects wrap up, so that they're all mapped and located and reported as closed out.
Yeah.
That
Get it
might be
wrapped up.
kind of the way to do it, especially since we're so close to the last few remaining. But I hear you, and I haven't forgotten that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Hearing none, the next item on our agenda was the staff update on the Soldiers and Sailors Home application nomination.
This will be quick. Just updating the commissioners that our approved believe it was July, application for Soldiers and Sailors Home as a historic site has been pulled from the agenda for Planning Commission and forthcoming City Council meetings. I would advise that it be reapplied for and that we look to renominate it and put it back through the sequence in the future. There are a few different reasons for this, but that is my staff recommendation, and just wanted to provide an update on that I did hold that from the Planning Commission based upon a request. So I just wanted to give an update. I do think there's room in the future for it to go back through the process. I just don't think that this is the right time for that.
Okay.
Should we wait to do that again, or you think it should be done too sweet?
What was the second part of that?
I said, do you think we should wait to start the process again, or is that something that time is of the essence?
I think there probably needs to be a couple months between where we're currently at and when an application could be filed again.
So we want to dot the i's, cross the t's, and just do some things to get set. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Are these actions within the bounds of our ordinance?
Jake Welsh and I have been discussing that. I've been discussing that with Jackie Spry as well. While the ordinance does not explicitly say yes or no, that condition actually isn't explained in the ordinance. It was our interpretation as staff members that it was our interpretation as staff members that if it didn't meet the timelines spelled out in the ordinance, that it would have to be reapplied for through the sequence again. So it was asked to be put on hold by someone that was not me. I did not get it to the Planning Commission in time because of that request. The request came from above me. So because it didn't meet the 30 days or the 60 days, which are spelled out in the ordinance, section 7, it's my interpretation of the ordinance as well as Jake Welsh's that it would just have to go back through the process properly within those corrected timelines for it to meet criteria. Do you have another understanding of section 7, Matthew?
No, our ordinance is, since it lacks this sort of timeline that is very common in other municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. And usually that there is a very elaborate clause that exists within the ordinance that prevents something like this from happening.
I think that's missing.
Something that we are going to need to address in the future.
Yes.
With the revision of our ordinance.
Yes, and I brought that up. Jake and I both discussed that, had that point in our discussion and recognized that. And I think this is the first time that this has happened, that it's been tabled and then didn't meet the timeline criteria and then didn't move forward in the process. And so like you articulated, there does need to be something in the ordinance for cases like this.
Some type of verification, sign off, or something like that.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Well, I was just going to ask if, in this instance, if it's
The green light's on. So I was going to ask if in this instance, I guess it would be to be on the safe side. Do we need, or would it be beneficial for the commission to offer a formal vote for tabling? I know that, right, we've got the 30 days. The 30-day window that is spelled out in the ordinance has come and gone, and so I don't want to say inactivity, but just simply not meeting the timeline, right? Simply not meeting the timeline sets us kind of back at zero. But I guess I'm also wondering if there's a benefit to the commission kind of formally taking a stance and saying, you know, we hear the staff, we hear others that work within the planning department, and we agree by motion to table the nomination with the intent that we will look at it again at a future date, at a time that might be more suited to the nomination.
To solidify its
To just
status.
confirm that we're not throwing out the nomination, because the commission has actually already voted, right? We voted to
Yes.
issue a positive recommendation on the nomination for then Planning Commission review. So we do actually have on the books, even though, again, the timeline that's spelled out in the ordinance has passed, we do still have that motion where the commission had voted to move it forward. And so I guess I'm looking at having now the commission make a formal motion that would back up staff's actions. Just to make sure that everything's cohesive, we're all on the same page, and I'm more than happy to make the nomination. Or make the motion, I'm sorry, not the nomination, make the motion.
Okay, do you want to?
I don't believe we can do that because there is nothing in front of us, right? We've already acted on this matter, so in order for us to take action again, we would need something in front of us. So it would either need to be renominated and tabled, which I don't think would be possible considering our ordinance, or we would need to vote to take action at a future date. It seems like both of those issues are not, both of those courses of action would not resolve the issue at hand. Sounds like staff has taken action, or the city has taken action rather, on what it was in front of it. I don't think that this commission is able to take action on something that is not in front of us at the moment.
So I think, to follow up with both of the comments, it seemed to be staff's understanding, both Jake Welsh, myself, Jackie, I had conversations with both, that because it didn't meet the timelines articulated in Section 7, that the application itself has no manner or momentum to go forward, and at this point is sort of a null application. That was our understanding of the way the ordinance is currently written. It's my recommendation that we revisit it in a few months, that the original applying party can reapply and provide information again on a forthcoming application. Really, this was just more of an update on where that is and sort of why.
Who was the original applying body?
I believe that it was Preservation Erie, or Melinda, do you?
We prepared the nomination, but it was officially the HRC that put it forward. Because again, Preservation Erie, as is not one of the entities that can nominate. So while Preservation Erie prepared the nomination,
So we ourselves were the nominee of this.
I thought with this one,
I thought, because,
I think we should rediscuss this at the November meeting
fine.
so that we have things in front of us.
yeah, so that's what it was. We went through this explanation when we were reviewing the nomination. Preservation Erie was not an eligible entity to nominate. We could prepare the nomination, so we can prepare, but we cannot be the ones to really submit the nomination. So the HRC agreed to be the nominating entity as a representative of the city council, as an authorized body by city council. And so,
but technically it doesn't have standing.
yeah, and that's fine. If no action is needed, that's absolutely fine. What I wouldn't want to happen is I don't want it to get lost.
So I would recommend to that point that we actually vote to put it on the agenda next month where we bring more data and we can actually discuss it.
If we're at that point.
Yes, that we can actually do it. Otherwise, it gets kicked down the road and down the road and down the road, and these are the kind of things that get slipped through the cracks easily.
Sure.
So, yeah, so
Unless
let's
we
not
set a
do
time to
anything at
address
this,
it.
let's
Yeah.
not do anything at this time. Let's wait to hear what occurs in the future, and then something could be brought before us
Right,
to present.
right.
I think it's a little bit hard at this point to know a timeline for the
Okay.
applicant or
Yeah,
the owner, but I do hear you. I think even maybe early, like January, February.
Yeah, no,
So-
I myself am not asking for a timeline. I just want to make sure. I know that we are a recommending body, right? We ultimately don't make any final decisions on anything. It just feels a little disconnected to have something that the HRC motioned to do, right, not happen. And I actually agree with tabling or holding it. I'm not saying that I disagree with that. I'm just saying I feel like there is a disconnect between the responsibility of the commission and kind of the circumstances around this particular nomination. So if a formal motion to table and/or do anything else is not needed, that's absolutely fine. I'm just calling out, frankly, the weirdness of the commission motioning and approving an action and then, right, ultimately it just not happening. And there are reasons, and I totally get that. It just, I think that's a weird scenario. So, yes, again, not necessarily advocating for any specific particular action if it's not called for, just anyways.
Okay. Well, let's, I think we've had everyone had their say on that, so I think we move on the agenda to the next item, and that's the new business to discuss the current downtown Erie design guidelines document and use. And I know there's a link to the document on the agenda. I know Heather, you mentioned possibly someone being here today, but so we could just have an internal discussion since we have no speaker
Yeah.
to talk about it. But I think a lot of us already know about the design guidelines. You know, several of us were involved in the creation or advisory council, whatever. So, did you want to talk about any particular or
So I've been in dialogue with Emily Fetko at Erie Downtown Partnership and over the last 4 or 5 months about this. And I think it was the spring, at one of the first meetings here with HRC that we were at, where we were talking about how we might be able to, as a commission, adopt these in lieu of the fact that we are missing citywide design guidelines, and that these really facilitate, and there's a hard copy by you.
Yep, yep.
That these really facilitate a great foundation, especially for, one of our more vital sections of the city, which is downtown. And so, with that said, I thought that as a nice way to kind of like get back into the thinking of this document and everything that it entails, maybe the commission might consider a study session, such that, we go through it, we talk about what we really like, we talk about potential things that might be missing. Maybe we use that dialogue from the parts of it that might be missing to launch how forthcoming design guidelines for the city might, kind of absorb some of the parts that are missing in that existing document, that type of thing. So I had requested from Erie Downtown Partnership just a statement or their blessing, really, on the use of those. And I do know that the city, that we're familiar with that. And like Melinda, Chris, Dave, you're all here on the advisory committee. I just thought it might be a nice step to have that kind of statement or blessing for use for us. And I know that she's very, very busy. And she might have even sent that, and I might have missed it this week in my email or something.
Would you want to, I definitely like the idea of having a study session and to invite Emily to be involved.
Great.
And we could each take the time to review it again and have that discussion about how it applies and, like you said, what's missing, what should we address further.
Wonderful.
To implement this.
So if the other commissioners like that idea, maybe even we could set a tentative date. We could make it a lunch meeting. We could make it really fun. We could even meet, well, technically it should be here, but we could bring our lunch and eat here, prior to a meeting if that is easy for
Yeah, I think it
commissioners.
was easier to meet at like noon and have the meeting at 1, and we could just have lunch if that makes sense, if everyone's available. Make sense? Sound good? Okay.
Sure. So maybe, did I hear maybe a November or December meeting, or even January if those months get busy, that we have that before our HRC monthly meeting? Is that what I kind of heard?
How about November?
November?
November's good for me.
Let's try for November.
If at all, wait, am I on mute? No, I'm not. Yes, sorry. I'm just having some technical issues. So it looks like our November session is actually just before Election Day. Things are get a little crazy. Wondering if we can maybe look to December when things might be a little calmer.
That's a very good suggestion.
December, is that calmer to you?
He said
Not me.
before. And we do meet on a Monday, which, is a little bit tricky, right after a weekend. And so that Election Day is, the following, right?
It's on the 5th. Is it what? Anybody know offhand? Yeah. Maybe to be safe, we get the beginning of December, at least, then that's beginning of the month instead of the end of the month. Does that make any sense? It's a little bit easier. Doesn't matter. Okay.
I should have the schedule with me, but we meet either on the 2nd or the 9th of December. It might be the 9th, but it could be the 2nd. Usually it's the first Monday, but sometimes I think it's the first Monday, which would be the 2nd, because I don't see any holiday just in a quick skim of those dates. So we'll tentatively plan on the December lunch to have a study session dedicated towards the downtown Erie design guidelines.
Does someone want to make a motion to have that meeting and set the date?
So a motion to host a study session of the Historic Review Commission at a date to be determined in early December, the focus of which will be to review the commercial design guidelines created by the Erie Downtown Partnership for their consideration for use citywide by the Historic Preservation.
I would second.
Second, okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay. The next item on our agenda is to discuss the updates on the citywide Historic Resources Survey schedule and Phase 1 deliverables.
This one should be pretty light. So I guess it was 2 weeks ago at the mayor's press conference on a Thursday. Jackie and I were both there from the Department of Planning to talk about planning initiatives and project launches. Preemptively, I discussed the soon-to-be launching project of our citywide historic resources survey. We are tentatively considering Thursday the 17th or Friday the 18th. The original launch date for the project had to be shifted. And we have the state planning conference next Monday and Tuesday, of which I'll be there present at both days. So from a timeline standpoint, we anticipate a press release for late next week. The consultant from the EDR consultant and team members and I are still working through the online story map components. So it's not quite yet at a review standpoint. It's more at a editorial standpoint. It's not really at a content or dialogue review standpoint. There will be flyers and postcards coming out, and staff will be working with the communications department on those tentative approvals for those regarding design and content. We had planned on some banners being printed and used, so I have to shift around that idea a little bit because the original request was denied for those for placement. So I would anticipate early next week or probably later this week, I'll be sending out an email with the anticipated story map website. The staff member who's been out for 3 weeks at EDR, they got married, so that's a pretty good excuse to be able to have 3 weeks off. They are returning this week, tomorrow specifically, and over the next 2 days, they and I will be meeting very tightly and often to get the story map to where it needs to be. And I'll be picking back up with the design of the flyers and the banners and the postcards, such that we can meet the deadline for late next week. So,
what's the overall schedule? Remind us if you could.
Of the whole project?
Yeah.
So
they started what again? I know there was a delay.
So EDR had to go through the process of becoming a vendor with the City of Erie, which took a little bit of time to go through that whole process. And then council voted and approved on that. What I just discussed over the past 2 or 3 minutes just now is phase 1. Phase 1 is focused on public engagement and communications and public input. So that is partially facilitated through a CLG grant, which is a national grant, but operated through the state. And it has really a tight purpose. And that is due by, we got an extension on it. I requested an extension for phase 1. That's due by the end of the year now. It was originally due by the end of September. And thank goodness that we didn't have to adhere to that because we probably wouldn't have made that. So phase 1 will be wrapping up at the end of December. The survey team and the survey component, which are like the 2 subsequent phases that are facilitated through Keystone grants and City of Erie monies, those have historic research and field-based survey and report portions of each of those phases. So, to answer your question, EDR has started the historical research. They've reached out to Hagen, they've reached out to the Penn State Mapping Library. We've had meetings with the people from PA Share and the state SHPO office in recent weeks. So they're starting their preemptive research and organization for their strategy. And we went through one state training last week regarding our existing conditions information from the GIS departments in the city and county. And we are hoping to be starting the field survey for the Phase 2A areas very soon. I would say late October, early November, for the 4 or 5 neighborhoods articulated in that initial phase of the survey. The Phase 2A, which is the first field portion of the survey, has to wrap up. It must wrap up by next September. So that's why there's such a big push and priority for that to happen. The second Keystone grant that facilitates Phase 2B, those other 4 planning areas of the city, that also wraps up next September, but that one has the opportunity to possibly obtain an extension for a year, which we're sort of anticipating and hoping that will be granted for those. So in total, both of those 2 portions of the field-based survey will look at 47% of the city, almost half of the city. Staff is working on CLG and Keystone grants for the next fiscal year, for the next phases, the other planning areas of the city that aren't covered under these first 2 grants and monies. So the state did confirm that as long as the city of Erie, as a certified local government, is working towards a baseline historic resources survey, that we are in compliance of being a CLG and with everything that comes with that. And that document that I provided last week, that Bill Callahan from the state and I will be dialoguing on as sort of like a CLG checklist, so to speak, we can speak to how both now and in the future we are working towards that through our requests for baseline survey information. So I know that was a lot, but that's sort of a synopsis of where we're at, and sort of the immediate deliverables, which is Phase 1, because that grant is ending in December, and then like the Phase 2A and the Phase 2B, like how those line up, and then what's left that we haven't covered yet.
Yeah. Do they do, instead of you having to kind of remember all that and tell us, did they have like a report at certain points in the thing that we could just get a copy of? They will at least know what's going on, and
A report like my...
yeah, just kind of like a status of where they're at, like a check-in points or milestones where they would say, okay.
Are you saying the city or the grants?
No, for all the work done for the historical resource survey, just kind of a status. Is like a report on the status at certain portions of it or not?
Oh, from EDR, from
Yeah.
the consultant?
Yeah.
Oh, I can definitely ask for that.
Okay.
I can
I'm just trying to
definitely-
simplify your life to report to us and to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to give, monthly updates too. Yes, I can talk with EDR, the consultant, about
Okay.
just providing like a quick synopsis, or even maybe I could come up with that based upon their billable invoices to me
Yeah.
that I push through. I can maybe like articulate what
Yeah, I
they've
don't
done
want
and
to make more work,
completed.
but I just,
Right,
that might help
right,
for everybody, that's all.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Great, okay.
I think to add on that, not that it has to be every month, obviously, But if there are one or two opportunities for the Historic Review Commission to interface with the consultants, I think that would be a good thing. Even if it's only once or twice throughout the life of the project, right? I think that would be beneficial for both the commission and the consultants.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Melinda. That is anticipated. I haven't even formally met them in person yet. Everything's been online and digital, sadly, because that's the world we live in, is screen to screen sometimes. But yes, and when we interviewed them, we had that at the forefront of, parts of the questions when we would talk about asking the interview, when we were interviewing the different teams, asking them how they envision their visits to Erie, and EDR specifically spoke to how they wanted to work with the HRC. And last month, when we sort of were kicking off in dialogue, so to speak, one of the things that they did when they corresponded to us as staff is they included like Dear City of Erie and HRC. They were very thoughtful to actually speak to the commission as the hiring body, so to speak, along with the City of Erie. So I thought that was very respectful. But yes, absolutely. And I'm sure that they'll be here in a few weeks, and we can definitely coordinate on when that would be.
And it could even be on a Teams meeting, during our meeting, they could just be on the agenda and just, call in.
Oh, that's a great
I'm
idea.
trying to make it simple for everybody, because I don't want to plan extra meetings for them to come to Erie. So I know they have a tight schedule and budget.
Sure, yeah. And I'll be happy to, let the commission know when they are here and starting their research and field survey if you'd like to meet them in person. And Dave, that's a great idea for it to be like an online meeting too, just at our normal monthly HRC
Okay.
meeting.
Great. Okay, any other comments about that? We'll move on to the last item on the agenda. And I think the last time was just going to be, you were just going to report on the APA, that's the meeting that's come up in Erie, the conference.
Yeah, so keep an eye out next week. That's all I can say at this point. I am sworn to secrecy, but just keep an eye out next week. It'll be good.
Okay.
Just follow that event. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, well, that's the last item on our agenda. Is there any other items that were on the agenda that we need to talk about, or are we good? Good, everybody? Okay, so
I move
let's
to adjourn.
Oh, okay, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, those in favor, say aye. Those against?
Aye.
Majorities have it. Thank you. Thanks for a good meeting.